Take it away, Jake.
Hey, Kurt. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Comics That Influence. I don't know if you could hear Zenny in the background, my little dog. She's going crazy. I don't know if it's the
She's
postman or
excited about comic books.
must be. And we've got an exciting lineup for today. I see you got Dark Regions from White Wolf, and I have some Frank Frazetta here from DC. Let me just close the door here. I don't know exactly what's going on back there, but um, yeah, let's dive right in. Frank Frazetta is an influence, I think, of the entire world of comic creators. You know, he's one of the first people that you talk about when you're talking about, a real talent for anatomy and composition. And what I'm gonna try to point out. I mean, I have one issue of his old stuff here, The Shining Knight. That this was a kind of like a compendium of work that he did, I think, in the 50s,
That
right?
was like
It
it was
probably,
a I think it was a backup piece in something
yeah,
Bold and Brave or something like that.
this was 1950 and 51.
Wow.
um yeah,
Jeez.
this was in the back of All Star Comics.
Oh, All
And
Star.
the
Okay.
Shining Knight. So believe it or not, like this was considered like second rate. Um, but just to go
Yeah,
through
this
his
guy's
early.
okay.
I mean, he must have been young and just trying to break in, and so maybe they say, okay, we'll give you, like, we're not going to give you Superman, but we'll give you, like, some starting out stuff. But during the 50s, Frazetta began to assist Al Cap and he was ghosting on Little Abner. And he also, I didn't know this, but he also would be ghosting for Little Annie Fanny in Playboy magazine.
Just
Um,
he only did two, I think only one or two pages. The story goes he would draw the veins in the breasts. That's how
what?
detailed he would get.
Uh
And
huh.
what was it? Elder and Kurtzman? Is that those were the two,
Kurtzman,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. They were like,
Harvey,
nah, we don't need that much detail. All right, buddy.
right? Yeah. So in the '60s, he got into those famous sci-fi book covers, and and those were fully painted. And then his career was off and running, doing the paintings from then on. Um, and there's definitely influence from Prince Valiant. But what I like to point out about Frazetta is the fluidity, right? The fluidity of his characters, right? I mean, and maybe even you see a little Norman Rockwell in here, but the kind of like the way the characters have, you know, they're not like straight up and down. They're expressive, right? And here, you go to kind of like, this is definitely boxy panels, a lot of text, which means he was a slave to the script writer, right? And the story. Um, but here you see, like, even in simple faces, like, just great placement, great proportionality, right? Everything's. I mean, here you see, this reminds me a little bit of Ditko, who would come later, right? In this pose, um, and this is like, Knight's stories here. Here you finally see a female character. You don't see too many, um, and also, these backgrounds. I hate these backgrounds a lot because they're just like, kind of gaudy colors thrown in, like just solid blue, solid yellow, it's solid orange, it's solid red, a whole field of solid red here. Um, and this means that he was probably, working real quick, and you don't have time to put in all those Hal Foster details. But there was a character here, and these are really short backup features. So we go, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and done, right? And then here you're into another one. So this was kind of like his early entrance here. You can see, the Al Cap influence. You can see, the Hal Foster. Also, he was starting to do these kind of like nature um, these little indications of nature. Here we see like he's starting to put in some of the foreground elements. We talk about these things over and over. To me, I see so much Ditko, in this. It looks like Ditko was really templating here. But let's move on from some of the Shining Knight work, right? Because this was like done on a deadline, and this is you know done for another publisher. It wasn't really where his creativity wanted to go. Here on this one, you can see he really starts to bring in a little more of the fauna and the vegetation, right? And God, this looks like it could be Ditko to me, right here.
So
Um,
one of the things, Jake,
yeah,
I've always thought about Frazetta and comic books is I really get curious, and this is just like something maybe even subconscious to him, but I feel like he used it as a bridge, as somebody would use a sketchbook. But he was getting paid. So when you go through this panel to panel, you can find a lot of repeatable figures in poses, facial structures that he then starts bringing into his paintings.
yeah,
So it's like he had paid time to really get into the substance of the times for what it took to make an attractive selling comic book. And then when he starts going into paperbacks, he's still coming in through Roy Krankel. He's doing watercolored versions and swipes of Hal Foster for the Tarzan. And then all of a sudden, he starts bringing in oil paints and it's just rocket blast. So there's something about the value of doing comics as an artist just for the paid sketchbook value. And I just wanted to plug that.
yeah. I mean, getting your chops down, right? Like not only being good, but being good and fast. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, but then you do give up like the fluidity, right? Like here, this is a great example. This is dated 1975, but this is a pen and ink drawing. But it doesn't look like it's made for a comic series. So this must have been like an
It's for a
illustration made
portfolio.
portfolio
It was
set,
for a
exactly.
portfolio. Yeah,
Right.
it was
And
Kubla Khan, right?
you can see the fluidity here. You have a guy who's cradling his mortally wounded companion on the battlefield. You have all of the different weapons, and you can see this must have been an incredible melee. The backgrounds kind of you know they're not there, right? They're this floating in a cloud of white, but then there's just enough background, to kind of like that's touching here that gives you an indication, and then this kind of melts away, for the purposes of the illustration because you're not going to fill the four corners, but you want to give a little sense of what the floor looks like, this rocky floor. Um, so this is the comics interview, David Anthony Kraft's comics interview. I'll try to pick up the year as we go, but you can see the pages are very yellow. This was put out in 1987, and Frazetta was still very much alive, and I guess doing interviews. But part of the uh, part of the deal is you want my interview. How about a nice ad right up front for
Two
my
of
print
them.
catalog? And
And his museum.
yeah, well, I don't know if he had the museum, but he's
Yeah, to the left.
advertising.
It says the Frazetta Museum.
Oh, right here, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry.
No, I'm
Right,
sorry.
the East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. So
Heck yeah, bro.
you could pay $4 to go in and see all of his stuff hanging up, and he had these landmark paintings that were hanging up there. Or you could send $3 and get the print catalog, and if you were smart, you bought some stuff, so, some signed prints or maybe some original art from that catalog. If you were smart, um, this is a magazine that has was around for a while, covering the comic book industry. Jim Salicrup conceived of it. There's a name that um, Jim Massara sounds familiar. Look, Ellie Frazetta, special thanks. I don't know if that's the wife or if that's one of the.
It is. It
Yeah,
is.
right.
She's the
So yeah,
business manager.
right. She might have been
She
doing
was
a
the
lot of
business
the
manager.
administrative stuff back then. Here's a picture of the
Right.
man. And up front they have a feature of this Steve Ringenberg guy who did stuff like this, which looks like AC Comics to me.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. But
I bet it
this
is.
was, yeah, this was just kind of an upfront feature. He said he wasn't that interested in superheroes, but he sure is doing them here. um, and so these magazines were great because it spotlighted an artist, and you got to hear all their opinions and backstories and favorites and stuff. I got heavily into Hemingway. That says the guy that's doing FemForce, right? Here you see ads. This is also a great place for indie creators to plug their ads. I think this was a Rigenberg comic, so they might have got a free ad when you're doing the interview. It's like, okay, this makes sense to put this right across from here. This looks kind of sketchy. Love this one. This one looks like real, art. This one looks like a portfolio piece, to me.
Yeah.
Reminds me a little bit of Tim Vigil here. You got a lot of nature and some really,
Yeah.
well considered posing position. But this is the Steve Ringenberg guy who, again, he was new on my radar. Um, then they get into this whole section where they're talking about Frank Miller. So here's one artist talking about another artist. um, and this is a pretty long feature. Finally, we come to the Frank Frazetta, and this is all of his vital statistics. Then they get into an exclusive interview with him, and these are the only things around now, to find out all of his do's and don'ts and all of his likes and dislikes. It's kind of bad. You can see that the reproduction here on this cheap paper, it's already disappearing by the time it hits print, and then it only goes downhill from there. Especially when you're trying to repro a pencil drawing. But you can see here, like, remember what I was talking about before about dynamic lights and darks, and just the way he's working the line and the shadow in together, and then there's some cast shadows, there's some I guess here the printed patterns on the fabric. Oh man, this is just great. I mean, this looks like another one of these portfolio plates, right? But what I wanted to update Kurt, because we spoke about this last week uh when I did this. Remember the Fire and
Yeah.
Ice?
Yeah.
Yeah, I picked this
Woohoo.
up in Newberry Comics. Well, don't you know? The reason why I have Frazetta on the mind still is I went into another comic store in Nyack called Funny Business, and the guy had a really good selection. He had it set up so like all the indie comics are on the top rack, and all the Marvel comics and I guess DC comics are on the bottom rack, and it was really highly curated. And guess what I saw? We spoke about that the Frazetta family is licensing to Dynamite Comics the ability to now take these Frazetta characters, who were just invented in paintings, and bring them alive in comic form. And they're not only doing this with Death Dealer, which has been an idea that's been around for a while, before in other publishing companies. I think Dark Horse, I think Verotic, and Dynamite, they've all like had a hand in some of these Frazetta storylines. But guess what I saw on Friday was we spoke about Dawn Attack, which was that
Yeah.
female sci-fi chick, and they built a whole storyline and a whole title around her and a whole, I guess, world. But now I saw Mothman too,
Oh,
and
wow.
Mothman, there was only one copy left. It was almost sold out. It looks like they bought like 10, maybe 10, copies of each one of these titles. And Death Dealer, they had like 2 or 3 issues there. Dawn Attack. Oh, you know what? Maybe I have that wrong. Maybe they different variant covers, I should say, right? But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they had the latest issue of Fire and Ice. They had and with multiple covers for sale. They had the latest issue of Dawn Attack, the latest issue of Death Dealer, and then I saw Mothman there too. And it was funny because remember last week we went online and we looked at the website. There was no mention of Mothman there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it had to be in the works, because I saw it on the news on the comic stand. This is great. I mean, God, the fluidity. The woman is like chained up. She's floating in space. The Rocket Man is going to rescue her. It's all
That's
framed
Buck
against this.
Rogers,
Oh,
Buster
that's Buck
Crab.
Rogers.
That's a
Oh yeah,
Buster
did he?
Crab cover, and he
Oh,
played
so
Buck
these were
Rogers.
right. So these were actually covers that came out.
Yeah,
Yes. Now
yeah,
that you say
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um, I wonder if we're missing something here because how did they fit the title here without crowding
Well,
the
it's probably
the
cropped it. Yeah, cropped down. Yeah,
yeah, this might have been a little bit bigger, I guess.
sure.
And then right, who knows? But right, that was some of his best work were those Buck Rogers covers.
Oh, look at that. Oh, oh. I
So
have that
right,
portfolio. I have that portfolio.
Ralph Bakshi and Frank Frazetta conjure up a new sword and sorcery event. So you know what I wanted to just throw out
Jeez.
there because Kurt, it seems like a mad rush that everybody is trying to jump on these licensing these existing characters so that you have a tie-in and you have a natural audience.
Yep.
But they're getting artists, and Dynamite is doing it. They're hiring good artists. I guess they're hiring good script writers. I haven't really slowed down to read the scripts, but that's one thing that I haven't seen done because when I was looking at the covers of the different comics that are for sale right now, they have the Night of the Living Dead comic that's coming out now, and they're starting to skirt around with some of these B movies.
Yep.
And that's one of the ideas that we have in the making right now is to make an what used to be called exploitation comics, but to make B movies that are like really campy, really kitschy send ups, and to put those into comic version. You haven't really seen them take those B movies and make them into comics yet. And that's our hopefully original idea that nobody beats us to the punch. But what about the other Ralph Bakshi film, um, Wizards? Don't you think that would be ripe right now for a licensed version? That
Yeah,
was the
especially if you can get somebody to draw like Mike Plug and Von Baudet. That's because
right.
that's all it is.
And I
Which,
saw a comic. I saw a comic on the stands. I I should have taken a photo of it. Maybe you can, if I can find the name of it, maybe you could lay it in later. But there is a comic out there. You remember Vaughn Baudet had something called Junk Waffle,
yeah,
right?
I have a copy.
Yeah. So there's a comic out there right now which is such an imitation of Junk Waffle. Even the
What?
name that they use sounded like Junk Waffle, and it is all Vaughn Baudet style, and it's out there, and it's on the stands, and I don't know if they're successful or not. I don't know if they have the blessing or not. I doubt it, but you know, it's all these just kind of like tribute band artists, that come along. Look at this. This is the Lord of the Rings portfolio he put out in 1975. Um, this isn't how I saw the Hobbits, but this is definitely how you see Gandalf. Oh my God! And this ended up being another Ralph Bakshi movie. The Lord of the Rings hasn't really, been put into comics. But there's a new Netflix series, or is it Netflix or Amazon or one of those that has a new Lord of the Rings series out right now. High budget, right?
Yeah.
I haven't checked into it because I'm just, to me, it's just like, oh God, it'll never hold a candle, to the real thing. Um, Here you see this kind of like smoldering character. You notice how he blacks out the face and just puts it in silhouette. That's not only very artistic and it's not only realistic because the light source is above. It's also a great time saver,
Yeah.
to just black that out. I teach my kids that doing silhouettes is a great time saver, but partial silhouettes are just as good, And so this is, this looks, I don't know. Oh, this is his Harry character from EC Shock Suspense, 1954. So he was working for EC Comics, which is the Kurtzmans, right? Again, who was the I get wasn't
Bill
Harvey Kurt.
Gaines. Bill
Oh,
Gaines
Gaines,
was
right? William
Bill
Gaines, right?
Gaines. Yeah,
William Gaines, but
Kurtzman
Harvey
was Mad
Kurtzman,
Magazine.
right? Harvey Kurtzman came out of that, I guess, movement with Bill Gaines.
Yep.
Here's up close what it looked like, right? And he was used, here it is with the halftone dots. So just moving through this, this is a really nice kind of selection of his early and late work, and these interviews are probably fascinating, to get deep into his thinking at the time. But here's some of his stuff. This is
Thunder.
Funda, which you might as well, Cadillacs and dinosaurs might as well say, Cadillacs and dinosaurs, with apologies to Funda, because this
It was
is really
written by Gardner Fox.
Thunder was right. Okay,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And if anybody doesn't know, Kurt has a connection to Gardner Fox. He is the curator of the library.
Gardner Francis
right?
Fox's Library.
That's right.
.com.
Here is Frazetta doing Tarzan. I think on Comic Kayfabe, the cartoonist Kayfabe,
No, that's
they
still
spoke
Thunder.
about
That's still Thunder.
Oh, this is Thunder? Oh,
Yeah.
so Thunder is a Tarzan-like character?
Yeah, he's a modern guy whose plane crashes in a prehistoric landscape
Realm.
on Earth. Yeah, like
Sure.
a Edgar Rice Burroughs type of thing. And
Sure.
he, like at the Earth's core. And,
Yeah.
he quickly adapts and he becomes the boss, and he gets a saber-toothed tiger cub and raises him as his sidekick. And then
Long fangs.
yeah, it has his thing with the local princess queen type, and fights Neanderthals. It's great stuff, man. It's great stuff.
This is something right here, right out of Bern Hogarth's, book, like Dynamic Light and Shadow, right? The light,
absolutely.
the dark,
yeah.
the balance. You notice that he didn't spend an hour here doing a background and drawing every blade of grass, but he's got some indication of leaves here in silhouette, and then just a contour line, of some leaves on the ground. He does the same thing here, right? And he purposely leaves it open space. And this is not only a practical decision to try to knock this stuff out on a deadline, but and yet also convey the scenery and the environment. But then here it also gets a little artistic, right? It's like instead of drawing this whole bottom of the mountain pass and the bottom of his legs and his knobby ass knees, he's just going to get it all swept up in this kind of like
mist,
wind indication, right? It's like an indication that he's blowing in the breeze. So it not only saves time, but it also gives you a feeling, so you could really just break down his stuff. I mean, he was gifted in a way that very few guys people, look at this one right here.
Have you ever seen the Snowman comic? Have you ever had a copy of the Snowman comic?
No.
That I think
that's a new one to me.
It's a published. Track it down. It's even online. You could look at pages, but he was published at 15, and it was just him being a kid doing his own. It was called Snowman comic, and he had all the chops at that point. The only thing he refines, and you say it over and over again, is the artistic, technical hammering out. All the rough edges he tightens up and makes it more commercially viable. But the expression in moving from panel to panel, a cartoon character at 15, forget it. I mean, I think what happened, and I think I've heard somebody say this in interviews from back then, is they didn't know what to do with him. They just didn't know what
Yeah.
to do with him. And he wanted to
Well,
play baseball. He wanted to play baseball but he then ended up marrying his wife, Ellie, and then found out, oh shit, I got a family now I got to feed, and immediately ran into commercial work, illustration. And comics was the hottest thing to get into to get paid. And he first worked with Al Williamson and Roy Krenkel, and then the rest is history.
yeah. So these are. Oh, look, he kind of redid this one. These are like the epitome. I saw these originals at the New York City Con one year in a frame, and and you just stare. You're just mesmerized. Um, I want to point this out too. Like, you know, when you're drawing from observation, you notice stuff like this. When you're drawing from imagination, you really
Right.
have to have an advanced kind of mind, to think of the interplay of shadow on figures as you're walking
Yeah.
through jungle, scenarios. But look at this. I mean, this looks like a portfolio plate, right? Pen and ink
Yeah.
illustration, and this is just a clinic on light and shadow. It's a clinic on, naturalism, composition, right? The almost vertical or diagonal composition, right? And it's an attack, man against beast, with all these like this framing, right? You notice how all the elements frame this, and then this branch just cuts across the action. Amazing, man,
Yeah.
amazing. And
Yeah.
this is a horrible reproduction of it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Here you see that he was doing these funny animal strips in the 40s. So I don't know when he was 15 and he got off the ground with the snowman stuff, but I think he jumps pretty quickly into this. This looks like a little ducky character, and this guy here, these guys, um, you know, you got to find your way in any way you can. Here you see some Al Cap stuff. I wonder if the Frazetta originals are worth more than the Al Cap originals. You know, be,
Well, that's
because he was,
it's a tricky
but
question.
here is some EC stuff, right? This kid is on dope and he's getting ostracized, and then yeah, just does this stuff. Um, I think this was a pen and ink illustration he did, and then maybe this was after, because they said let's make this a cover of a comic. Um, it's not exact. This probably fits the storyline better, but they were like, oh, give us that. We'll make a story around it, and beautiful stuff. I mean, you're really missing things here in the bad reproduction. But here you can see, now this is when he's doing some gray tones, and this might have been full color even, but we can't tell. But this reminds me here of Arthur Suydam. You see Frazetta show up in Ditko. You see Frazetta showed up in Arthur Suydam. Here you see Frazetta show up. The influence of Frazetta on Bernie Wrightson. Right. This is the Wrightson, and I put Frank Brunner in the same school. I put Mike Plug in the same school. Right. They're all Frazetta acolytes. And just to finish us up here, um, I mean, me, you, everybody, we all like can study him, and we all take something away. Like when I think about like the way that you know, like this guy's leaning back in the chair. That I got to start using the silhouette trick, right? I got to start doing the framing of the nature stuff. I got to start. The more you imitate Frazetta, the better off you'll be. Even though it'll never look like Frazetta. Don't worry, folks. It's going to be your style.
Well, to quote
You know,
Frazetta from an interview, Frazetta is famous for saying, "There's only one Frazetta, be you."
right, right, right. But just what a talent here. And of course, I always show all the ads. And here, these are like little promos. The latest Gulacy and McGregor. This is when Dragon Flame came out, a savage ghetto guerrilla This is a black and white plates. This is just like a this wasn't even a comic, right? This is Galassi and McGregor. That was the team that brought you Saber,
Yeah.
right? But and here's Simonson and McGregor. I think McGregor was taking out some ads here, and he's like, "Well, let me just script some illustrations for you, right? Like put a dude coming out of a window and kicking, a bank robber in the teeth." Right? How do you have a writer for a? And so the thinking there is that they were working on a story, but maybe you start out with
Maybe there were
the
pitches.
portfolio.
They were like a
Yeah,
pitch.
the portfolio could be the pitch, but you could also look $7 a pop, right? And how do they get those printed? How many copies do they make? These are all questions that are eating away at me. Here's P. Craig Russell. He's doing some fantasy stories by Jack London. Is that legal? I don't know. I guess it was a public domain. So, look, here's Tim Kirk doing some Frank L. Frank Baum Wizard of Oz stories. I guess that's okay because it's public domain. Here, Don McGregor is working with Walt Simonson. This is an erotically explicit science fiction odyssey starring one of the most remarkable heroines in science fiction. Killraven was never like this. Bonus, a backup feature on Detectives Inc. with artwork by Marshall Rogers. Trade paperback with full color cover painting by Walt Simonson. What the hell are they even advertising here?
Yeah.
It shows a snake with a TV set for a head. I don't know what I'm buying here. It says a trade paperback with a Walt Simonson full color cover, and it says it's erotically explicit, written by Don McGregor, artwork by Marshall Rogers. I would love to see this, but they don't even give you the title. What the hell?
$10.
Was this like a drip campaign or something? Yeah, and you could be an early adopter. Send $10. So great little time capsule here, but that's my report, and Frank Frazetta can't get enough of it. Um, I was just about to pull the string on eBay, buying White Indian. There was something that that compiled all of his White Indians into
I
one
have it.
trade paperback. Yeah, but I couldn't get a good price. I think they wanted like 20 plus shipping, and I
Yeah.
didn't go
It's
for it at
worth
that
it.
price.
It's worth
Really?
it. Yeah, it's really
All
worth
right.
it.
Well, maybe I'll try to find a reader copy. But I'm dying to see what you got here with this. What's the name of the artist?
This is Rick McCollum, McCollum. And I think he's active. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to bring this comic book to light. I have a big stack of just sword and sorcery and fantasy comics that I'm going to be pitching out from here and there's. Because I'm a huge
Yeah.
sword and sorcery fan, and even worked on my own version of Crom the Barbarian, which is another creation by Gardner Francis Fox. But anyhow, this is a really interesting comic in it's 1987. It's black and white. It's from White Wolf, which was one of the players in the black and white boom. I'm pretty sure it's the same group that goes into Dungeons and Dragons, role playing games and everything. If I'm wrong, I will correct myself in a nice little pop up balloon there.
Yeah.
But I am really taken by the artistry that's gone into this. Now, there's two other issues that I don't believe I have. I've got to double check, and if I don't, I am going to go and get them because I have to have all three of these. The story is pretty Dungeons and Dragons campaign oriented, and I'm fine with it. And again, but this guy, Rick McCollum, he really he reminds me a lot of like Robin Ader. And the reason I bring it up is because he has a versatility in storytelling from panel to panel much like I had brought up about Robin's work, where it was sketchbook quality in that there was just a real impulsive flow, and then inks placed on top of it and stuff. But you could just take this page, okay, and look at three things. Look at all the black, squint your eyes. I might even put things in out of focus.
Uh-huh.
Just look at all the black shapes, then look at all the white shapes, then look for all the gray. Now he does have this one screen here. There's a screen here, but then he plays a lot with just marking. I don't want to call them cross hatching or hatching or anything. It's just scribbling, mark making. It's phenomenal. Then the other thing that comes through is there's obviously a Jack Kirby, let's say guts underneath. But then, I think as a young guy, I'm going to guess that Rick was probably in his college years, wanted to get into comics, same as Robin, and was just playing, was figuring things out, reading whatever comics he was reading, and was going for it. Good action. Story when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons campaigns are all pretty much the same. It's like a dysfunctional family. But check this page out. This one right here. This is something hits. And I just can't get enough of this. And I love all the detail put into the spine of the books. I love this kind of stuff. Then the candles, the lighting. Then you have this wizard mage. Then he's got his book and his scroll and all of his accoutrements and everything. Bells go ping, ping, ping. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. And of course, the lead up is just as good. There was a similar comic. If I can find what I'm thinking, I'll throw it up on the screen. Darkon, Drakon. It keeps coming back to memory. I think I have a copy. I'm pretty sure I do. I'll try to find it. I might even do a review of it. But there was a similar play. Once again, I have to say, the number one success of this comic is Rick took this book seriously as a black and white printed book. It's just like this kind of stuff. This is why I always buy comics like this. He's making decisions to keep things interesting. It's not complex. The story flow is moving, and it prints really well. And of course, the aged newsprint just beautifies it. It just makes it great. I love this in the face. Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And then boom, pick up another story. This is obviously something that got picked up and then got turned into kind of the cover. So you got that lead from the, a lot of covers, especially in the indie world, would tease the hell out of you and never follow through. Bam! Here we got the follow through. So whatever this is, ogre, hobgoblin, maid, whatever it is, it gets in. And once again, great thing. Now here's the bonus. Are you ready? He does the lettering too. Pencils, inks, and lettering. And I don't know. Let me hold this up.
It's very integrated.
Isn't that great? Come on. What do you got to say, Jake?
Yeah,
pretty damn good, right?
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm just trying to Google him and see like some of the breadth of his work. But it turns out there is a Rick McCollum, same spelling and everything, who is a Western painter, and it looks like to be a different guy.
It might
and
be
then
the same. A lot of guys make that migration.
No, it doesn't mention. I'm looking at a bio of the Western guy, and it doesn't mention any stopovers into comics, and the style is radically different. He just looks like kind of like a classic Cowboys and Indians style. And then there's a third Rick McCollum, exact same spelling, who was the bass player for the Afghan Wigs,
No
and so that was
way.
the music, that was the musical world, rather. And yeah, so, and that doesn't look like it's the same guy either. I am seeing that Rick McCollum is credited in doing some Eros comics. Um, there's something called The Darker Side of Sex on Abe Books for sale that he's credited with. Um, I see some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't know if this is fan art, but this is on Comic Art Fans, where there's a Rick McCollum doing an intricate piece. But I see his work here, and some of it looks a lot more, you know, designed, a lot more, you know, I guess maybe, you know, maybe like portfolio, you know,
Tightened up.
type pieces. Like, you know, the guy definitely understands black and white. He definitely understands texture. But he has a very kind of like cartoony spirit going on, right, running
Yeah.
throughout. You know, like
Yeah.
you know, thick outlines, and you know, his lettering is integrated, you know, so it seems like, you know, he's planning out the whole page and the scripting, you know, and because if you're doing the lettering and the art, what are the chances that you have a separate writer at that point, right?
Well,
um
this is a creative team of brothers. Tom and Dave Falwell are the created by, and it's written by Tom Falwell. Um, but
okay.
everything else when it comes to, it's like he got paid to do everything. Rick McCollum and these
Yeah,
two
I mean
guys basically just projected him as the guy who,
yeah, I mean, if you have
creator.
I don't know who those two guys are, but
Well,
you know,
It
if
says
they,
Dave Farwell. Dave Farwell is the publisher of White Wolf, so they're
right,
brothers.
so,
So
right, but
they're
I'm
just
saying,
trying to
like,
come up with an IP.
right, as far as designating roles, right, if you hire an artist that's going to, you know, take your, I mean, you know, sometimes it's the Marvel method, you know, but you know,
Yeah,
they go to a restaurant, they sit around and they say, well, we want the story where the guy goes this, and then, you know, he finds the magic chalice, and then, you know, he's going to ride, you know, a chariot, you know, to the planet, and then, you know, they're going to fight the villain, and then it wraps up, and then all the, you know, panel to panel breakdowns and the dialogue, you know, falls to the artist because you have to make everything fit together. So who knows, you know, how they did it. You know, when they say story by, that could be a lot of different things. Um, you know, so I that's why you need to do interviews with these people, you know,
yeah. We
and
gotta
find
see
out.
if
But
we can
yeah,
find him.
he's
Got to see
got
if we can
he's
find him.
also got a credit on Gore Shriek comic, with some horror stuff, and that looks like Fantagore, right? Let me see. There's a big F up in the corner. Is that Fantagore I'm looking at? He's got some. Yeah, he's got some real demonic covers. Let's see. He's done Turtle Soup. He's done Gore Shriek. He's done Taboo and Goodies, if you know those names. So those are kind of like the adult realm. And then he appeared in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Classics, sure enough, Volume 1. Um, and then, yeah, and also Turtle Soup. So these are comics that I've come across. Ashley Dust looks interesting. It looks like a female protagonist, and it looks like some kind of sci-fi fantasy thing. You know, you see like weapons, but you also see like, you know, maybe like spell casting and stuff like that. And that looks
Well,
like night
have
prep.
you found him? Have you found him? Like, do you find
Oh, the guy.
anything where he's got an
I didn't.
Instagram or Twitter or?
Oh,
Because I think we need to
no.
track this guy down. Like Robin, we got to track Rick down. We got to find out what's
Yeah.
going
I
on
mean,
because Once
Yeah, if he
again,
was
this is
active,
just, and this is appalling that this is not in trade or somebody is trying to, re-massage this. Like, it can't be forgotten. My point is, this kind of stuff cannot be forgotten.
yeah. Well, if he was active in the '80s, he's probably a little bit ahead of us. But
Yeah,
I'll see.
maybe by like
I'm clicking on the
five,
name
10
Rick
years.
McCollum, and you're getting the musician guy. I'm not getting some art here, and you're getting other people. It's kind of a common name. So no, I guess we'll have to poke around and try to find the the comic guy. But yeah, it's not so hard. If the person's still active, it's not so hard. It just takes a little time.
Yeah,
Um,
I just found
yeah,
something
I
that
mean,
I'll send it to you.
also
All
maybe in
right.
the also maybe in the late '80s, there's a little Michael Golden influence there, or no.
Well, that's, I think, one of the things that was pretty awesome about being involved in comics in the 80s and 90s, that there wasn't an overwhelming amount of influence being projected at you while you dead scroll through Instagram and you go, oh, I'll work like that. Oh, I like that thing. I like that. And it's why I still hold a deep passion for the 80s, especially in the black and white boom, is it's like a condensed version of what's going on then in development of people's careers. And it wouldn't
Uh-huh.
have been surprising if this guy went off to be a Western, Northwestern, or excuse me, Southwestern,
Yeah, no,
painter or
there's
something
no,
like that. But
yeah, there's
but the thing about it is that we take so much for granted, and an individual like this, I'm going to start tracking down more of his work, even the erotic stuff, and if it's not too bad, then I want to keep following up, and like I said, I want us to track this guy down. Anybody listening, if you know more about him or the whereabouts, please give us a heads up, because like Robinator, we just don't want to lose these guys to the ether.
Yeah,
It's
he's
great.
had quite a career. You might want to take a look at his Ninja Turtle stuff, because it is very much gray wash and all kinds of different
Like a
interesting
two-tone
values there.
boards.
Yeah,
Cool.
and it also looks like his pages were pretty tight at that time, at that part of
Cool.
his career.
Cool.
Um, yeah, but he's definitely on comic fan art site, and there's that might be a good place to start looking around.
Cool.
He
Well,
did.
that's really what I just wanted to bring into our conversation as we're doing the comics that influence both you and I, Jake. We also want to hear from others. We also have completed our first
Huh,
teaser, which is the first 6 pages of our Turbo Pit Fighter. It's available in links below on my website, kurtbrugel.com. And we're also offering a exchange. So if you're an indie comic book artist out there, you want to exchange comics with us, we'll send us copies of yours. You send us copies of ours. I mean, we'll send us copies of ours, and we'll try to set up time that we can get together and talk comics, making comics, finding your audience, and the future of comics. But other than that, Jake, it's all I have. Do you have anything before we let these people go back to reading comic books, making them if that's what they do?
no, just check out Rick McCollum, and if you're into it, and then tune in next week where we're gonna have a lot of cool other different things. I have a drool stack that I'm working through, and I just needed to get Frazetta out of the way, because there's a definitely a Frazetta thing happening in your local comic store right now.
It's on the front shelf when you walk in the store.
It's like, first and foremost, there's like the Frazetta characters are coming alive in the comics, in characters and stories. Dynamite Comics has it, Dark Horse has it, and you know and it's kind of like a what if. What if a Frazetta painting, was launched into a series and they got a good artist on it? What would that look like? Well, you can go and check it out yourself.
Awesome. All right. Well, I can't wait till next Sunday. But until then, I'll see you later.
Yeah, man. All right. Thanks.